Imagine growing up with two father figures, one rich, one poor, each offering completely opposite advice about money. One says, go to school, get a degree, find a secure job, and work hard for money. The other says, forget job security, learn how money works, invest, and make money work for you. Which advice would you follow? This is the dilemma young Robert Kiyosaki faced, and it became the foundation of his groundbreaking book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, first published in 1997. Over the years, this book has sparked controversy, inspired millions, and challenged conventional thinking about wealth. Some critics dismiss it as overly simplistic, while others praise it as a financial wake-up call that traditional education fails to provide. Regardless of where you stand, one thing is undeniable: this book has changed the way people think about money. Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad isn't just another finance book filled with dull jargon. It's a compelling story that reads like a novel while teaching life-changing financial lessons. Through the contrasting perspectives of his two father figures, his highly educated but financially struggling poor dad and his entrepreneurial, wealth-savvy rich dad, Kiyosaki unveils the secrets of financial independence. As you embark on this chapter-by-chapter breakdown, presented by Dadson Education, a not-for-profit organization dedicated to literary analysis and education, prepare for an engaging journey that will not only inform but also entertain and inspire. Whether you're a student, an aspiring entrepreneur, or someone simply looking to break free from the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle, this summary will open your eyes to new financial possibilities. To set the tone, let's start with a thought-provoking quote from the book. The single most powerful asset we all have is our mind. If it is trained well, it can create enormous wealth. With that in mind, let's dive into the key lessons of Rich Dad Poor Dad and explore how you can use them to transform your financial future. Chapter 1. The Rich Don't Work for Money. A lesson from two fathers. Picture a young Robert Kiyosaki, a curious and ambitious boy growing up in Hawaii, watching two very different men navigate life. His biological father, whom he calls Poor Dad, is a highly educated man with a stable government job, yet he constantly struggles with money. He preaches the importance of getting good grades, securing a safe job, and working hard for a paycheck. In contrast, Robert's best friend's father, whom he calls Rich Dad, has little formal education but owns multiple businesses and is financially successful. He doesn't chase paychecks, he creates them. Instead of telling Robert to work hard, Rich Dad challenges him to think differently about money. One day, frustrated by the lack of financial education in school, young Robert and his friend Mike ask Rich Dad to teach them how to become wealthy. Rich Dad agrees, but under one condition: they must work for him not for money, but for experience. The first money lesson: breaking free from the paycheck mentality. Robert and Mike start working for Rich Dad's small convenience stores, earning just 10 cents an hour. At first, they feel cheated. The work is boring, and the pay is almost nothing. Then, after weeks of frustration, Robert confronts Rich Dad. This isn't fair. You're not paying us enough. Rich Dad smiles. Good, he says. You're starting to think like most people, working for money, instead of making money work for you. This is the first major lesson: the poor and middle class work for money, while the rich let money work for them. To drive the lesson home, Rich Dad cuts off their pay completely. Now, Robert and Mike must learn to think differently. Forced to seek opportunity, they notice something interesting: expired comic books that the store owner throws away. Seeing a chance to make money, they collect these books and start a comic book library, charging neighborhood kids a small fee to read as much as they want. For the first time, Robert realizes what Rich Dad was trying to teach him. The rich don't work for money, they find ways to create value and generate income. Key takeaway: the difference between the rich and the poor. This lesson shattered everything Robert had been taught by his poor dad. He now saw a crucial difference in how the rich and the poor think about money. The poor and middle class work hard for a paycheck, seek job security, and remain trapped in the cycle of earning and spending. The rich look for opportunities, acquire assets, and build systems that generate income even when they're not working. Rich Dad explains that fear keeps most people stuck in the rat race. They fear being broke, so they work harder. But as they earn more, their expenses rise, keeping them dependent on a paycheck. The only way out is to change how you think about money. The moment you realize you don't need a paycheck, you're free. This chapter lays the foundation for the rest of the book. If you can stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like an investor, you're already on your way to financial freedom. Now, let's move on to chapter 2, where we'll explore the biggest reason people struggle with money: they don't know the difference between an asset and a liability. Chapter 2, Why Teach Financial Literacy? 2 Dads, 2 Lessons. One evening, young Robert Kiyosaki sat at the dinner table, listening to his poor dad lecture about the importance of school. Get good grades, go to college, and find a secure job, his father advised. To poor dad, financial success was the natural result of academic achievement. Meanwhile, across town, Robert's rich dad was teaching him a different lesson, one that had nothing to do with diplomas. It doesn't matter how much money you make, rich dad explained. It matters how much you keep, and whether your money is working for you. This confused Robert at first. How could someone with no college degree understand money better than someone with a PhD? The answer, rich dad explained, was financial literacy, the ability to understand how money truly works. The most important financial lesson: assets versus liabilities. Rich dad knew that most people, even those with high salaries, struggle financially because they don't understand the difference between assets and liabilities. To prove his point, he asked Robert a simple question. What is your house, an asset or a liability? Robert immediately answered, an asset, of course. Rich dad shook his head. No, your house is a liability. Here's why. He pulled out a simple financial statement and explained. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. A house, rich dad explained, costs money in mortgage payments, property taxes, and maintenance. Unless it's generating rental income, it's not an asset, it's a liability. On the other hand, things like rental properties, businesses, stocks, and intellectual property put money in your pocket, making them true assets. Robert realized that this was why poor dad, despite his good salary, struggled financially. He spent his money on liabilities, thinking they were assets. Meanwhile, rich dad focused on accumulating true assets that made him wealthier over time. Why schools fail to teach financial literacy. Rich dad's lesson made Robert question why schools never teach these concepts. Schools focus on preparing students for jobs but never teach them how to manage, invest, or grow their money. As a result, people graduate with degrees but remain financially clueless, falling into the cycle of earning and spending without ever building wealth. Most people struggle financially because they learn to work for money but never learn to have money work for them. Robert realized that if he wanted financial freedom, he couldn't rely on traditional education. He had to take charge of his own financial learning. Key takeaway: educate yourself about money. This chapter drives home a powerful truth: financial education is your responsibility. If you don't learn the language of money, you'll always be dependent on a paycheck. Rich dad's final advice to Robert in this chapter was simple but life-changing. The rich acquire assets. The poor and middle class acquire liabilities they think are assets. Now that we understand the importance of financial literacy, let's move to chapter 3, where we'll explore how the rich build wealth not by working harder, but by owning income-generating assets. Chapter 3, Mind Your Own Business. The difference between a job and true wealth. As a young man, Robert Kiyosaki followed the traditional path most people are taught. He got a job. Unlike his poor dad, who believed a stable job was the key to financial security, Robert had already learned a different lesson from his rich dad. Your job is only a stepping stone, rich dad told him. Use it to build your assets, not as your end goal. At first, this idea seemed confusing. A job provides a steady income, so isn't that the key to success? But as Robert observed the people around him, he noticed a pattern. Those who relied solely on their jobs, no matter how much they earned, were always financially stressed. On the other hand, those who built businesses and invested in assets continued to grow wealthier, even when they weren't actively working. A tale of two mindsets: poor dad versus rich dad. Robert's poor dad followed a predictable financial path: go to school, earn a degree, and secure a good job with benefits. He worked hard, earned promotions, and had a respectable salary, Yet he never felt truly secure. Every financial setback, a medical bill, a market downturn, or an unexpected expense, kept him tied to his paycheck, reinforcing the cycle of financial stress. Rich Dad, however, never depended on a paycheck. Instead, he built businesses and invested in income-generating assets. Most people work for everyone but themselves, Rich Dad explained. They work for their employer, then for the government through taxes, and finally for the bank through mortgages and loans. If you want to be rich, you need to mind your own business. This lesson reshaped Robert's perspective. Instead of focusing on earning more income through work, he needed to acquire assets that would generate income for him, whether he was working or not. Building the right kind of wealth. With this mindset, Robert began pursuing small ventures, not as lifelong jobs but as a means to fund his investments. He soon realized that true wealth wasn't about earning a high salary, it was about owning assets that made money independently. Rich Dad emphasized the importance of investing in real estate, particularly rental properties that generate cash flow. He also encouraged investments in stocks and financial assets that provide dividends and long-term growth. In addition to real estate and stocks, businesses were another essential wealth-building tool, offering income even when the owner wasn't actively working. Intellectual property, such as books, patents, or other creative assets, could also generate revenue for years. Meanwhile, most middle-class workers remained trapped in what Rich Dad called the rat race, earning, spending, and continuously depending on their jobs for financial survival. Key takeaway: own assets, not just a job. The fundamental difference between the rich and the poor isn't how hard they work but what they work for. The middle class works for income, while the wealthy work for assets that provide continuous cash flow. The rich focus on acquiring assets, not increasing their paycheck. Robert realized that true financial security didn't come from climbing the corporate ladder but from owning the ladder itself. Understanding this shift in perspective was crucial to breaking free from financial dependency. Now that we understand the importance of building assets, Chapter 4 will explore how the wealthy legally avoid paying high taxes while the poor and middle class bear the greatest tax burden. Chapter 4: The History of Taxes and the Power of Corporations. One day, Robert Kiyosaki had a startling realization: his highly educated but financially struggling poor dad was paying more in taxes than Rich Dad, who made far more money. How was that possible? Poor Dad, like most middle-class workers, saw taxes as an unavoidable burden. He believed in paying his fair share and often complained that the rich didn't contribute enough. He filled out his tax forms, saw a significant chunk of his paycheck disappear, and accepted it as the price of earning a good salary. Rich Dad, on the other hand, had a completely different view. He didn't evade taxes, he legally minimized them. And he did it through one of the most powerful tools of wealth: corporations. The rich don't play by the same rules as the poor and middle class, Rich Dad explained. That's why they get richer while others struggle. How corporations protect wealth. Rich Dad gave Robert a simple but powerful lesson on how the tax system works. The poor and middle class, who earn their money through wages, follow this pattern. They earn money, pay taxes, and then spend whatever is left. The wealthy, who earn money through businesses and investments, do something completely different. They make money through a corporation, spend money on business expenses, which legally reduces their taxable income, and then pay taxes only on what remains. For example, if an employee wants to buy a car, they must use their after-tax income, meaning they first pay the government, then buy the car. But if a wealthy person owns a business, they can buy a car through the company, if it's for business use, deduct it as an expense, and pay less in taxes. The same applies to travel, meals, and even healthcare. It's not about working harder, it's about understanding how the system works, Rich Dad said. A system designed to favor the wealthy. Robert learned that taxes were originally introduced to tax the rich, but over time, the burden shifted to the middle class. The wealthy, using legal loopholes and financial education, found ways to protect their money, while employees and small business owners who lacked financial literacy ended up paying the highest tax rates. Rich Dad explained that governments tax employees the most because they have no way to shield their income. Meanwhile, those who invest in real estate, businesses, and other assets often get tax breaks because they contribute to economic growth by creating jobs and housing. The difference between the rich and the poor wasn't just about how much they earned, it was about how they kept and grew their money. Key takeaway: learn the rules of money to play the game better. Robert realized that wealth wasn't just about working hard, it was about understanding the financial system and using it to your advantage. The rich don't cheat, they simply play by a different set of rules that most people don't take the time to learn. If you want to be rich, you need to be financially educated. The more you understand money, the less you'll pay in taxes and expenses, and the more wealth you'll keep. Now that we understand the power of corporations and taxes, let's move on to Chapter 5, where we'll explore how the wealthy create opportunities and grow their fortune instead of waiting for luck to come their way. Chapter 5: The Rich Invent Money. Robert Kiyosaki grew up believing, like most people, that making money required hard work, good grades, and a stable job. But as he spent more time learning from his rich dad, he realized that the wealthy didn't just work for money, they created it. One day, Rich Dad asked him, "Have you ever noticed that some people seem to find great opportunities everywhere, while others complain there are none?" This question stuck with Robert, especially as he watched Rich Dad and other successful people turn ordinary situations into profitable ventures. It became clear: the rich don't wait for luck, they create their own financial opportunities by thinking differently, taking risks, and acting boldly. The power of financial creativity. Robert saw this principle in action when he started his journey in real estate. While others hesitated, convinced they needed a large amount of cash to invest, he used financial education and creativity to make deals with little of his own money. He found undervalued properties, used strategic financing, and leveraged the power of negotiation to turn small investments into big returns. Rich Dad explained that money isn't just earned, it's created. The difference between the rich and everyone else is that the rich understand how to recognize and seize opportunities. While the average person is too afraid of risk, waiting for the perfect moment, the wealthy take calculated risks, learning from their failures and improving their strategies along the way. The fear that keeps people poor. Most people let fear hold them back, the fear of losing money, making mistakes, or looking foolish. Poor Dad, for example, always warned Robert to be careful, avoid risks, and stick to a safe career. But Rich Dad had a different perspective. The biggest risk is never taking a risk at all, he said. The wealthy understand that mistakes are part of the journey. They don't let fear stop them, they use knowledge, strategy, and experience to turn risks into rewards. Instead of saying, "I can't afford it," they ask, "How can I afford it?" This shift in thinking opens doors to financial creativity and new opportunities. Key takeaway: wealth is created through knowledge and action. This chapter reveals a simple truth: opportunities are everywhere, but only those with financial education and the courage to act can take advantage of them. While the middle class focuses on saving and avoiding risk, the rich look for ways to multiply their money. They use investments, businesses, and strategic financial moves to create wealth from nothing. Money is only an idea. If you want more money, change your thinking. Now that we understand how the rich invent money, let's move on to Chapter 6, where we'll discover why developing skills is far more valuable than simply chasing a paycheck. Chapter 6: Work to Learn, Don't Work for Money. Growing up, Robert Kiyosaki was taught by his poor dad that the key to success was to get a degree, find a secure job, and work hard for promotions. But his rich dad taught him something radically different: jobs should be stepping stones to financial education, not just a means to earn a paycheck. Robert didn't fully understand this lesson until he began working different jobs, not for the money, but for the skills he would gain. One of his most surprising experiences was taking a job as a salesperson for Xerox. At first, he hated it. Cold calls, rejections, and the pressure to sell felt uncomfortable. But Rich Dad encouraged him to stick with it, explaining that learning how to sell was one of the most valuable skills in the world. Most people avoid jobs they think are beneath them, but those jobs often teach the skills that make people rich, Rich Dad said. The power of specialized knowledge. Robert noticed a key difference between employees and entrepreneurs. Employees often focused on specializing in one field: doctors, engineers, accountants, all earning a steady paycheck but dependent on their jobs for survival. Entrepreneurs, however, had a broad set of financial skills. They understood sales, marketing, accounting, investing, and leadership. This allowed them to create and manage businesses rather than simply working for one. Rich Dad explained that money follows those who have financial intelligence. You don't need to be the best at everything, but you do need to understand how money works, how to make it grow, and how to communicate effectively. A person can be highly educated, professionally successful, and still be financially illiterate, Robert realized. Why most people stay stuck in the rat race. Robert saw that many highly skilled professionals, doctors, lawyers, and even business executives were trapped financially. They earned good salaries but lacked financial intelligence, meaning they worked hard for money instead of making money work for them. Rich Dad believed that instead of chasing promotions, people should chase financial education. The real world rewards those who understand money, not just those with degrees. That's why the rich get richer. They keep learning, adapting, and expanding their skills. Key takeaway: the best investment is in your financial education. The lesson was clear: don't work just for money. Work to learn. Seek out experiences that build financial intelligence, whether that's learning how to sell, how to manage a business, or how to invest. The more specialized your skills, the more dependent you are on an employer. The more financial intelligence you have, the more freedom you gain. Now that we understand the power of learning over earning, let's move on to Chapter 7, where we'll explore the mental barriers that stop people from becoming financially free and how to break through them. Chapter 7: Overcoming Obstacles. Robert Kiyosaki's journey to financial freedom wasn't smooth. He faced failures, doubts, and moments where fear almost stopped him from taking action. But Rich Dad taught him something that would change his life forever. The difference between the rich and the poor isn't just knowledge, but how they handle obstacles. One of Robert's first big challenges came when he invested in real estate. He had done the research, found a promising deal, and was ready to buy. But at the last moment, self-doubt crept in. What if I lose money? What if this is a mistake? He hesitated, and in that moment of hesitation, someone else bought the property. Later, he watched as the new owner flipped it for a significant profit. That loss stung, but it also opened his eyes. Fear of failure had cost him a great opportunity. The primary difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they manage fear. Rich Dad. The 5 obstacles to financial success. Rich Dad explained that there are 5 main obstacles that keep people from achieving wealth. They aren't external forces like the economy or bad luck, they are internal battles that must be conquered. The first and biggest is fear. Most people are terrified of losing money, but the truth is, everyone loses money at some point. The rich don't avoid losses, they learn from them. Rich Dad compared it to learning how to ride a bike. You might fall a few times, but if you never get back on, you'll never learn to ride. The second obstacle is cynicism. Many people dismiss opportunities by saying, it's too risky, it won't work, or the economy is bad. Instead of looking for reasons why something can work, they focus on why it won't. This keeps them stuck, watching others succeed while they stay on the sidelines. The third obstacle is laziness. Not the physical kind, but the mental laziness of avoiding financial education. People claim they are too busy to learn about money, yet they spend hours watching TV or scrolling through social media. The rich make time to learn because they understand that financial knowledge pays off for a lifetime. The fourth obstacle is bad habits. Many people spend first and invest what's left, if anything. The rich do the opposite. They invest first and spend what remains. This small habit makes a massive difference over time, turning small investments into financial freedom. The final obstacle is arrogance. Some people refuse to admit what they don't know. They dismiss advice, thinking they already have everything figured out. Rich Dad warned Robert that arrogance is one of the fastest ways to lose money. The best investors are lifelong learners, always seeking to improve. Key takeaway: success comes from facing fears, not avoiding them. Robert learned that everyone faces financial obstacles. It's how you respond that determines your success. The poor and middle class let fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance control them. The rich acknowledge these challenges but push forward anyway. The sooner you confront your fears, the sooner you'll start making money. Now that we know how to overcome obstacles, let's move on to Chapter 8, where we'll explore the practical steps to begin the journey to financial freedom. Chapter 8, Getting Started. Robert Kiyosaki had learned the lessons. He understood how the rich think, how they invest, and how they avoid financial traps. But knowledge alone wasn't enough, he had to take action. This was the turning point. One day, after years of absorbing Rich Dad's wisdom, Robert made a decision. No more waiting, no more hesitating, it was time to start. He began small, investing in real estate deals that others overlooked. He took the first step, then the next, and before long, he was building real wealth. Many people dream of financial freedom, but very few take the first step. They wait for the perfect time, the right opportunity, or until they feel ready. But as Rich Dad always said, the perfect time never comes. The right time is now. Practical steps to start building wealth today. Rich Dad didn't believe in wishful thinking, he believed in action. He gave Robert a set of principles that anyone can follow to begin their journey toward financial freedom. 1. Find a strong reason why. If you don't have a powerful reason for wanting financial freedom, you'll give up when things get tough. Is it to escape the rat race? To provide for your family? To have control over your life? Define your why, and it will keep you motivated. 2. Choose to learn and grow. The wealthy never stop learning. Read books, attend seminars, listen to experts. Understand real estate, stocks, entrepreneurship, and tax strategies. Financial intelligence is a skill, develop it. 3. Take small steps, but take them now. You don't need a fortune to start. Buy a small investment property, save for a stock portfolio, or launch a side business. The rich don't wait, they start, learn from experience, and improve along the way. 4. Surround yourself with winners. Your financial mindset is influenced by the people around you. If you spend time with those who only work for a paycheck, you'll think the same way. Surround yourself with people who understand money, investments, and wealth-building strategies. 5. Pay yourself first. Most people pay bills first and invest whatever is left. The wealthy do the opposite, they invest first and adjust their spending accordingly. Even if it's just a small percentage of your income, start now and let it grow. 6. Use the power of leverage. Wealthy people don't just rely on their own money, they use other people's money, time, and expertise to grow their wealth. Learn how to use smart debt, partnerships, and financial systems to accelerate your success. 7. Take action, even if you're afraid. Fear never disappears, you just learn to act despite it. Every successful investor, entrepreneur, or business owner started before they felt completely ready. You don't need to be perfect, just start. Key takeaway: the journey to financial freedom begins with action. Many people will read about financial education, but only a few will act. The difference between the rich and the poor is action. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Now that we know how to get started, let's move on to Chapter 9, where we'll explore advanced strategies for continuing the journey to financial success. Chapter 9. Still want more? Here are some to-dos. After years of learning from Rich Dad, making mistakes, and growing his wealth, Robert Kiyosaki had one final message: financial freedom is a lifelong journey, not a one-time event. The lessons in Rich Dad Poor Dad weren't just theory, they were a call to action. Many people finish reading the book feeling inspired, but inspiration fades if it isn't followed by action. Rich Dad always emphasized that knowledge is only powerful when applied. So, before closing this chapter, Robert leaves readers with a simple but powerful challenge: will you take control of your financial future, or will you stay in the rat race? Taking control of your financial future. Robert recalls a moment when he was speaking at a seminar. A woman approached him, excited about what she had learned, but then said, "This all sounds great, but what if I lose money?" He smiled and responded, "You will. We all do. The real question is, what will you learn from it?" This fear of losing money holds most people back. But as Rich Dad often said, the biggest losers are those who never take the chance. To truly break free from financial struggles, Robert outlines simple, actionable steps that anyone can take. 1. Decide to take control. The first step is a mindset shift. Stop waiting for the government, your employer, or luck to change your financial future. Decide that it's up to you. 2. Set clear financial goals. Do you want to escape the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle? Own rental properties? Build a business? Set clear, specific goals, and write them down. Goals turn dreams into plans. 3. Keep learning every day. Rich people never stop learning. Read books, attend workshops, listen to finance podcasts, and study real-world examples. Knowledge compounds just like money does. 4. Start small, but start now. You don't need thousands of dollars to begin. Buy a small investment, start a side hustle, or save a percentage of your income to invest. The perfect moment never comes, just start. 5. Find a mentor or financial role model. Surround yourself with people who understand money. Join investment groups, connect with successful entrepreneurs, or find a mentor who can guide you. 6. Take calculated risks. Playing it safe won't make you wealthy. Learn to analyze opportunities, take educated risks, and trust in your financial intelligence. 7. Build passive income streams. Start focusing on assets that generate income: real estate, stocks, businesses, or intellectual property. The goal is to stop trading time for money. Key takeaway: the best time to start was yesterday. The next best time is now. Most people will read this book, nod their heads in agreement, and do nothing. Don't be one of them. If you take just one step today, whether it's reading another book, making a small investment, or learning a new skill, you are already ahead of 90% of people. The difference between winners and losers is simple. Winners take action. This is not the end of the journey, it's just the beginning. The next step is yours to take. Conclusion: your financial story begins now. As we reach the end of Rich Dad Poor Dad, one thing becomes clear: financial success isn't about luck, a high-paying job, or a college degree. It's about mindset, education, and action. Robert Kiyosaki's journey proves that anyone can break free from financial struggles if they are willing to think differently, learn continuously, and take risks. The lessons from his two fathers paint a stark contrast between two financial paths. Poor Dad's path: work hard, chase job security, avoid risks, and rely on a paycheck. Rich Dad's path: learn about money, build assets, take control of your financial future, and create wealth. Will you follow Poor Dad's path or Rich Dad's? At this moment, you stand at a crossroads. You can ignore everything you've learned, go back to life as usual, and hope things work out. Or, you can take action, start building financial intelligence, and change your future. The good news: you don't need to be wealthy to start, you just need to start. Your first steps to financial freedom. 1. Make a commitment to improving your financial education. 2. Start small, invest, save, or build a side hustle. 3. Surround yourself with people who understand money. 4. Keep learning, keep growing, and don't be afraid of failure. As Rich Dad always said, the poor and middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them. So, what will your financial story be? Will you stay in the rat race, or will you break free and build the life you've always wanted? The choice is yours. This content is brought to you by Dadson Education, a non-profit organization committed to inspiring and empowering through insightful literary discussions. If this message resonated with you, stay tuned for more uplifting and motivational materials. Spread the word to others who could benefit from a dose of inspiration, and feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going.